Hey everybody, welcome to the craft room. I am Yvonne with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show you how I made this piece, or rather I'm going to try to make one just like it and to see if it is a replicable design, because I do think that it is. And I think it's going to be so cool because the beads that you have, the different wire tones that you have, the cabochons, the components, the teardrop, whatever you have on hand, it does not have to be exactly like mine. If there's a crafter, there's a way, but each of these different details, as we change it up and maybe put in, like we could do like a crescent moon or something there, but we'll go into more detail. But each of the variations that we can make in a piece will help to make it our own. So you are 100% invited to follow along with me, make your own pieces, sell them in your website or your Etsy shop or your booth, or however you like. I feel very strongly that I did not invent wire wrapping, and I'm in no way a gatekeeper to be like, oh well, this is my design. And like, no, you bought the wire, you bought the beads, it's your hands that are going to be a little stiff and sore at the end of the piece. Go forth and make that bread. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have our standard assortment of pliers. I've got my bent nose, my flat nose. These are two different varieties. I just like these ones for getting into tight places. Links to everything will be down in the video description. I've got my flush cutters and some round nose pliers. The gauges that I'm working with, and this is another area where you could use a square wire instead of, like here I am using 16 gauge for our thick core wires. 18 gauge round, just for those little bits. We don't need, or 18 gauge half round, I'm sorry, just for these little bits here on the side. We don't need a whole bunch of it. And 26 gauge to do all of our weaving and coiling. Now on this one I did use, I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but I used 26 gauge for the weaving and 28 gauge for the coiling, but I decided that was unnecessary. Now I am using, this is the part where it's like, all of these beads, I don't even know where to get them anymore. I got both of these from Fire Mountain Gems like a million years ago. So your bead stash will greatly affect how this part comes out. But I'll try to have something very similar linked, in that kind of size and shape. It's a 25 millimeter by about 10 millimeter wide teardrop. So yeah, instead of this 16 gauge, I wouldn't go any thinner than 18 gauge, but you could use a square wire instead. Like a square 18 gauge would look really sharp. And then I recommend a 26 or 28 gauge for the coiling and weaving. Just to warm up. Oh, also, these are linked down below too. These I find very crucial for this design because they make this bead gradient part so easy. Now I could use seed beads and different like glass and gemstone beads as well. So again, consult your stash and see what you've got that'll make this work. But let's get started by, I'm going to take one of these stainless steel head pins. Or ball pins, actually. Head pins are flat like a nail, and the ball pins have this very nice little ball head on them. And I'm going to go ahead and crack open our box of beads. Let's go ahead and stretch out a little bit, like we're going to be doing some pretty serious weaving today. Well, serious for me. I consider myself fully recovered from my hand injury, but it's always pain management from here forward, making sure I don't, overuse my hands. And so we're just going to slide on one of our teardrop beads. And this one is a C grade labradorite, but I still think it's beautiful. And then I'm going to take one of the smallest beads that comes with the Lolly bead kit. I'm going to put on a little bead cap, and then I'm going to slide that little bead on there. There we go. And then I like to use my flat nose pliers to do a 90-degree bend just as flush up to where that bead is as possible. And now I want this to be a very small loop, so I'm going to trim it down to be just about 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to use my round nose pliers, and I am going to shape our little loop around. If you are new to wire wrapping, we have an entire wire wrapping masterclass that goes in depth on how to make bead links and different things like that. you know, whether it's teardrops like this, like it's a whole masterclass just focusing on making loops and things, and it's 7 lessons, 7 episodes, so it takes you through all the foundations and stuff. So if this tutorial feels a little out of your depth, that's okay. There'll be links down in the video description below to where you can find that free masterclass, and you can actually watch it without ads, also for free, just over at our website, backtoearthcreations.com. Now, that being said, we're going to take a moment for some shameless self-promotion. I've been making what I call these easy wrap grooved cabochons, and we do sell them on our website, and that's kind of the sponsor of this video, because we don't take, like, you know, sponsors like Raid Shadow Legends. Like, it's just all of our free tutorials are brought to you by our website and by the people who watch our tutorials and our Happy Crafter Club. So I want to thank all y'all for being here. But you can use coupon code HAPPYCRAFTER if you want to buy some groovy cabs for your own self. You can check them out at backtoearthcreations.com. But if you have a stash of cabochons on hand that do not have this groove, we do a video where we show you how to add your own groove if you're into that. But also you could totally do, like, you could use some UV resin, you could use a big old bead, you could do a variety of different ways of, you could do like a little net bezel, so that you don't have to have one of our easy wrap grooved cabs to do this design. I just thought it would be really fun, and I wanted to experiment, and I'm very pleased with how it came out, primarily because we can just leave the back open. But if you can see here, and I'll show you I'll show you right now. You don't have to use the marquee cut either. You could use oval or round or square even. Just get very creative, whatever you feel drawn to. I'm going to be doing this style of cabochon today, the marquee cut, because that's what we did in the original. So initially, I'm going to come through. Oh, I gotta go grab my nylon gel pliers. I'll be right back. These are super handy and important for this design, for like basically any wire wrapping that I do, actually, just because it helps me kind of work harden and straighten out my work. And so what we're going to do initially to wrap our cab is we want to make sure that we have enough to wrap one side of it with 1 inch or 2 of excess wire protruding, and I'm going to cut 2 lengths of that. So for my 1.25 inch long stone, I'm using 4.5 inches of our 16 gauge wire. And again, that'll be different depending on the size of your stone. And we're gonna take our half round wire. Let me make sure it's nice and flat. And with the half round, if you've never worked with it before, there's going to be one side that looks like this, that has, let me see if zooming in is helpful at all. Do you see how that side looks versus this side that is kind of flat with that flash coming across? This is the flat side, and this is the round side, hence the half round wire. And I find this to be just perfect for wrapping around other wires to get them lashed together really well. I'm just going to wrap like that, flat side against it, without adding a ton of bulk. And I just love the way it looks. And so we've got 4, and then we're going to do, so there's 4 complete wraps. And then 5, and 6, and 7. I'm going to do 10, 8, 9, being careful that my core wires aren't twisting, and 10, just because I think that's what I did on the other side. That'll be just fine. And so I like to snip off our half round wire kind of right in the middle, so it's not too close to one edge or the other. And then I'm going to come in either with my flat nose pliers like these ones here, or with my nylon jaw if you'd rather. And I'm just going to squish that nice and flat. And we've got my ends lined up here. We don't need a whole bunch of wire hanging off the end. Now, if we had a cabochon that did not have the groove on the edges, what I would do is we could take this and lay it across and maybe use some UV resin. We might do a little bit of shaping similar to what we're about to, but you do not have to have a grooved cab for this. But if you do, and also one of my favorite things, this is a poor example of this, but if you have two cabochons, especially those like glass cabs that I like to use for making like dragon eyes and painting the backs of, and you like glue them, if you throw one of them on the ground, but if you glue them together, that will create a little bit of a groove that you can set your wire into, and it makes the piece reversible. So we may do another video of that technique and design in the future. So let me know in the comments if you're into that. Let me go find this. I gotta go find that cab. Super durable. It is not chipped or broken or anything. That makes me very happy. So now we are going to make a little bit of space between the wires like this, and then I'm going to come in and use my pliers, because in a game of flesh versus metal, the metal wins. So if I want a nice crisp sharp bend, I have to resist the temptation to just use my silly human meat hands. I need to use my pliers. So I want to do a split that's enough that the tip of our stone comes and just sets right in there. Now if we were using an oval stone, that gives us a really cool like little gap, or we can widen them even like farther, make it a more obtuse angle, and then set the cab in there and shape it around. So if there's a crafter, there's a way. And so yeah, we're just nestling that down into the groove, as you can see there. Now, I've not had luck with our groovy cabs with thicker than a 16 American wire gauge wire, just because even here you can see how it like really just sits on the groove, but it's in there. And so now I'm going to bring this wire across so that we can see where we need to make that bend. And I want this to end up being a little bit tighter as opposed to risk of it being looser. So I'm making sure that I don't bend too far out. I'd rather it be really nice and snug. So I'm just getting my positioning there and then bending to bring these wires into parallel. Oh, that worked so nice. It didn't work that nice and smooth on the first one, y'all. I'm going to be honest. Okay, and now we're going to come in with our half round wire again. And we want to do 10 wraps. And I am just making sure that we get this just nice and snugly, like really tight up on there. So we're doing those first 3 wraps. I like to use my bent nose pliers for this, just it's what my hand is the angle I'm used to working at, but use whatever works well for you. Just kind of pushing and encouraging that loose end around. And this is a great example of this is a little too close to the edge because it's going to be poking my skin. So I'm actually going to lift that out in a way. I'd rather have that little bit of waste wire than have a pokey edge. So we're gonna, there's 4 twists and 5 and 6 and 7, making sure that our core wires aren't twisting, and 8, 9, and if we go, I don't want to be backtracking over our wire. If that happens, just unwrap it, try to smooth it out as best you can. We can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I like to finish on the back side, and I'm actually going to press up on both ends of that wire just to make it a little easier to get my wire snips in. And I like that cut. I like to terminate the end of the wire where it's sitting kind of almost right in the center of what we're wrapping around. Squish, 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 but not too hard because we want to be able to move it. And now that it's up where it needs to be, squish, 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 there we go. And this is the core piece to this component. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, I love that. And so now from here, oh, and I want to show you guys what I've been doing with all of my scrap wire. So I still have one of these little bookcases left over from whenever we had a laser cutter and we were able to cut out and, you know, make our own little miniature furniture, which I really miss, but that Glowforge caught on fire thrice and I just couldn't anymore. So all I've been doing is whenever we've got like loose little, they're too short to use for anything else, little bits and bobs of wire, I've just been putting them in these little like tiny glass bottles. And I want to make a little, oh, it's too tall for that one, but they fit on this shelf. I want to make a little like fairy artificer workshop cabinet. And so I've just been filling up these bottles in hopes that I'll be able to make some pretty cool little, just like a little, I don't know, a workbench or something. It's hoarding. It's just hoarding with more steps, but I'm really enjoying it. So I thought I'd show you that. But all the little, like this little bit of like the steel wire and then the little bits that I cut off, I save those and I just put them into the bottles. In that way, like I said, hoarding with more steps, but it really makes my magpie heart happy. So I'll take that where I can get it. Just put them in there. So whenever you see me in any of my videos just hiding wire scraps in tiny jars, that's just all that is. I'll be okay. All right. So that being said, let's go ahead and make some more little tiny scraps. I am going to snip about 1/4 of an inch past where the end of this wire is, because that's going to be what we end up making our loops out of. And I'm actually going to give myself more of a centimeter. I love these wire snips, y'all. Do you see the way? I don't want to jinx it, but like look at how they don't even blink. They just cut through 2 lengths of that 16 gauge wire like it's nothing. I'll wait until the end to put all of my scrap wires in the jar. Okay, so yeah, so there's that. Trying to make sure it's nice and compressed. We want all those coils really snug and friendly with each other. And now I want to choose which way. I like this design. Actually, what got us making this, we were doing one of our Friday live streams, and our friend Michelle was like, do it horizontal, because this labradorite, it just vertical, I mean, it's still pretty, but there wasn't like a good angle that showed off its flash the way that being horizontal did. So I thought this was a pretty nice way. But that piece, it kept like flipping forward, like, because we had done some slightly different beads on it, and it kept like flipping forward whenever I was trying to wear it like as a necklace. And so that's what inspired the frame. And it's just, I don't know, I was having such a good time. But it's a fantastic way of utilizing stones that are best presented in a horizontal manner, to stop them from flipping too. Okay, let's see. So we've done that. So now we're going to come in. Oh, I forgot one of our wires. So I'm going to be using some 18 gauge and to do the herringbone. You could use a 20 gauge. My rule on this one for myself is I just use the thickest wire that will fit through my beads. I've done a little bit of straightening and work hardening right now, but we're going to be working off this or on the spool. So I have not cut the wire yet, but just check that out. Like, this is what we've straightened with our nylon jaw pliers, and this is how it looks off the spool. So you can distinctly see where that, like, it crisps up a little bit. So let's get it good and crispy. I don't want to do it too much because then we might have a hard time getting nice even bends around here. Now this is what we're about to do, is called a herringbone wrap. And we have a whole master class on that one as well, but I am going to try to go into a decent amount of depth on this one. But we are going to begin with our 18 gauge wire. I want to coil 2 segments, 2 separate segments that are just about exactly the length of one side of the stone. So for me, that looks like it's 1.5 inches. And to do that, I'm going to pull off, I like to work in about 5-foot segments before splicing in more, just because otherwise I'm juggling and tangled up in my wire too much. So to do the coiling, I like to work at the end of my wire, my core wire, and I'm going to give myself about 1 inch of tail that I can hold on to before I just start coiling around like this. Now this stage could be done with a drill, but I think it's a very good idea to get good at hand coiling, and then start using a drill, just so that whenever I'm coiling something that's in a tight spot that I cannot use a drill on, I'm well practiced, and that I don't want my hand coils to be looking rough, you know. I want them to look just as good as the drill coils. So just tucking down that little loose end of the wire. It's so cute. The neighbor's kitty is on the front porch drinking out of the water that we put out for the neighborhood cats, and he makes biscuits whenever when he drinks water. So that, I just love it. 4, 5. I don't need to be counting because I'm going for length over number of coils. If symmetry is like super specifically important to you, you can totally you can just count how many coils you're doing. But I'm avoiding that here because if you're using a different gauge wire than me, then that's kind of irrelevant. So we're just coiling around, and now whenever you can see there's a little bit of space there, we can just go boop and smush that in. But if we're coiling too wide and then we smush it down, do you see how that really wonks it up a little bit? Now, if that happens, we have a couple of options. You could uncoil it, straighten it out with your straighten the wire with your fingers a little bit and try again, or you can just plow forward with better technique, and that tightens it down some. And we can come in with our pliers in the same direction. If you notice how the wire is traveling kind of over and away from me, that's the way that I'm just gripping and twisting. And I mean, and that does a pretty decent job. My preference is to avoid that happening entirely, which is why I really like to keep those coils just as close shoulder to shoulder as what I can get them. And again, if you go back too much and it starts overwrapping on itself, we just uncoil, straighten that out with our finger, and then keep coiling. I like to stay pretty choked up on it with my supporting hand. That way everything's just nice and tightly coiled. We're going to test, and it looks like we could do just a few more, like maybe 5 more coils. But yeah, if I'm how do I put this? If I'm too far back and I push to squish everything, do you see how it jackknifed like that? And that's not the end of the world. I really prefer for that not to happen, because we can just slide our coiled wire off, like in one direction or the other, and then we can straighten out our work a little more. But if I can avoid it, that's prevention. Woo, there we go off the end. Prevention is the best medicine. That's not the end of the world when that happens. It's just like, whoo, it startles me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I did 10 more. But yeah, so that's the why I'm kind of working within my fingertips. I try to keep like a centimeter between them maximum. That way, when I smush the ends together, it's not jackknifing my core wire. And so from here, we can go ahead and snip. I'm just going to slide this wire down that way, closer to the spool that's off to my left. And then we're going to start again on this end and just coil segments. You could drill coil a whole length and then just cut it down to size as necessary. Would be a cool way if you're making like a batch of these for, oftentimes whenever I'm crafting for either for our website or for our booth inventory for when we're vending, I'll make up to 5 of the same design. I say that with the little bunny ear fingers because I can't get 2 things to come out exactly the same to save my life. That's why I don't do a whole lot of earring designs. But they're like sister pieces. They're like if you're having jewelry in litters. Like, and so instead of a litter of puppies, it's a litter of jewelry. And so each one will come out just a little different, if only because of, you know, the gemstones will each be a little different. And that way I can let a design mutate and evolve and kind of build on, I don't know, that's the way I like to do it, but I understand that's not, everybody doesn't function that way. But if I were to do that, that's when I would whip my drill out and do a whole bunch if I knew that I'm going to need a whole lot of, you know, variably sized coiled segments. Otherwise, I'll just hand coil. Coil, coil, coil. Smoosh. And we're going to go a little farther, just scooching it down. Coil, coil, coil. And I'd always rather make my coiled segment just a little longer than what I need it to be, because it is so much easier to just trim some excess coiling off than it is to have to splice in more. So we've reached the length that we need. I'll go ahead and give that a snip. Set this wire that there's still plenty more of off to the side. And then I'm going to burnish down our pokey ends, but I don't want it to be grabbing the wire, the core wire, because we're going to need some wiggle space. Oh no. Okay. So something else that I needed to have done just to prep our core wire for the next step is I'm going to clear the surface. I'm going to go ahead and just slip these coils very carefully off our core wire. And now we get to play the game of does it fit? So I'm going to put on, it looks like we needed like 4. 1, oh, that's so lucky. They don't always all fit that well. 2, that one's too small. 3 and 4, maybe. Nope. And I know I'm my own worst enemy because I'm just putting the ones that are too small right back into the tray for future Vaughn to stumble over. Is that okay? So we're just going to slide those down. You can see when we get one that's a little too tight, it gets caught on any little variation in the wire, but that's okay. And then we'll do one of the 3mm, boop, one of the 4mm, boop, one of the 5mm, boop, one of the 6mm, boop, and then another 5, boop, another 4, boop, another 3, and then let those slide down. But oh, I love it when things go from being small to being big, and then from big to being small. Like that gradient, I just love it. Like, it's one of my favorite design elements here lately, whether it's with gemstone beads or like what. I just, so happy. Brain chemical activate. All right. And so now we're gonna go, there's 1. That one doesn't fit. 2, oh, I love it when they fit. Oh heck, that one doesn't fit. What number am I on? 3. And then 4. And now I'm going to repeat that design, that bead stringing. So there, that one doesn't fit. That one doesn't fit. Well, boo. Pick up another pinch. 1. That one doesn't fit. 2, 3. Oh, that's nice. 4. Oh, look at us go. All right, and then again with the 3, 4, boop, 5, boop. Oh, and I bet we could do where there's boop, where there's be like boop, and oh, come on, here we go. Where it's metal and gemstone. Like you don't have to do the exact same bead sequence as what I'm doing. I think this is yet another fantastic way to express your own creativity and style while still following along with the tutorial. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. And so, but do you see how like pretty that is? I just love it. Like I would do whole necklaces of just wow, 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 like little beads like that. Okay, so now we're going to slide our coils back on, and now we are prepped and ready to go. Just being very careful to not squish the coil. So once I get it on there, I only grab firmly where the core wire has been reinserted. Okay, and now I can close the beads and I don't have to worry as badly about spilling them. So what we're gonna do, the things that are important to me when I'm making a herringbone wrap is I want to maintain consistent gapping, and sometimes it's just going to be a little wonky and weird, and that's okay. But I want my wires to kind of start the same, and so hopefully this will make sense and be helpful to you. So from here, I'm coming right here, and I'm going to bend down, but I want the tail end of our wire to be closer to the cabochon, closer to the center of our piece. And so we're going to give that a little squishy smush. And I'm going to snip. I'm only putting my thumb over it so that it doesn't ping me in the eyeball. But there we go, we've snipped. I will save it for my jar. Okay, and then I need to get out more. Mostly just to get more little jars, but okay, so now we have those nice and snug next to each other. And then I've slid our coiling all the way down. And I'm shaping with my finger to kind of give it a little bit of like an overbend. And then we're going to bring this around, kind of pressing and encouraging like that. And then I'm going to bend, boop. And then I'm going to wrap. And this is, I don't want it to just be pushing our coils away. So I'm setting that wire between the first coil of half round and the second. And that keeps it from squeezing it off the end, which this one squeezed off the end. It's okay. Sometimes that happens. And so now, and you can see I'm really mangling my wire with my hands. That's okay. We can take our nylon gel pliers and make it nice again. Whee! And so now I'm going to push that coiling up, and you can see it kind of made that gap there, but that's okay, I guess. So, and again, remember that when hand versus metal, metal wins. So fingernails do okay though, but they are very temporary. The metal wears through them, but I use my fingernails a lot in my work. So we just did a little bit of a bend there to get that to come around. And then we're going to come down to this side and again, do a little bit of a bend just to try to get it to match. And then I'm going to press around. And now we've locked down that half round coiling. And we can just slide 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoop, up that away. And then I probably could have gotten away with adding one more tiny bead and done like 5 on each end instead of 4, but this will be fine, I think. Or it won't. We can undo everything and restring it. But I'm just going to keep powering through. And so then we've wrapped around. And what's important here is, do you see how that's building up the wire on the back? So I'm not just, let me use this wire here as an example. I'm not just looping and coming back around. That's not a very good example. I don't know how to my brain. My brain. We're gonna need to add that extra bead, y'all. That's gonna make me wild. Okay. So we're gonna unwrap that just to get it nice and opened up. And you know, this is gonna make us have a little bit of scrap wire, but that's okay, because we're kind of towards the end of our piece anyways. So I'm just gonna snip here. Oh man. Sometimes I want to, you know, plan all the way ahead, but more often than not, I get myself into pickles like this, where now I'm just gonna set my hand on all those beads and just pull back. Well, that wasn't as bad as it could have been. But more often than not, I get myself into pickles like this, but that's okay. Because sometimes, you know, crafting happens. I'm going to straighten out that segment primarily so that I can try to get my beads over it nice and clean. Okay, and I don't need to take all 4 of the little ones off of this end, so I'm just going to flip, go down, do, 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 do. Okay. So now I'm going to add one more little bead. It fits. Oh my gosh. Wow. And then we'll do our 3mm, our 4mm, our 5, our 6, boop, our 5, boop, our 4, boop, our 3, and then our one bonus one so I don't forget. Ah, it's too small. Oh goodness. Alright, let's try again. Nope. It's okay. Woohoo! There we go. And then I'm going to test this one just to get me lined up for... And that one's got like a piece of, looks like buckwheat hull stuck in it. That's oftentimes I'll find little shreds of buckwheat hull because I think that's how they either polish or buff or shine or something their beads at the manufacturer. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right. And so now from here, we will bring this around. Oh yeah, that worked out really well. Doing that nice bend. And then bringing it around town. And I want the little crossover parts to just be on the same side of the same face of the cabochon. And so now from here we will pick, that one fit, so there's one. I'm afraid of starting a bead avalanche. 2, 3, 4, and 5. But yeah, do you see how quickly these beads go on? Like when compared to like just coiling? Like I think it's a great way of getting an excellent, like for the amount of like pop and wow and design factor, it's very little work, which I love. Anything to make it easier on my hands, I will take that, especially whenever it looks so pretty anyhow. Boop. Boop. And then putting on the 4mm and then the 3mm. And then with the wee bitty beads. 1, 2, 3, 4. This would also look super cool just using like size 8 seed beads. And then we'll do one more because that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Ah, too small. Too small. This is quality content right here, you guys. An AI can't compete with this level of incompetence. No, I don't think I'm incompetent. I just think I could do better. And I do my best, I promise. Do. There we go. Boom. We got that. Oh my gosh, I like this one even better than the other one. Okay, so now I'm shaping that around, and then we're just gonna bring this to here on the back. And this is another reason why I prefer to use the 18 gauge, because what we're about to do, we're going to just snip right like here, because I want to be able to tuck this end behind this wire. Do you see how that's a little visible right now? And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to come in here with my bent nose, you could use flat nose as well, and I'm just going to squish that closer to the other one so it's a little more in line. And sometimes I just have to take it and like kind of push my pliers against. We got to be careful not to distort our whole piece, and then we can just squeeze down. Oh, I'm very pleased with that. And testing with my finger to make sure that there's no pokey bits. There we go. But yeah, so that is how to do that component, like this part of the necklace. But this loves to spin, which you may want to incorporate as a design element, but it was making me bonkers. So I'm going to decide which angle I prefer. Gosh, it's beautiful from both ways. Okay, I'm just gonna have it be this way up because it's just as beautiful from both ways. So we'll set that there, and now we are going to start in on the frame. And this extra bit of 18 gauge that we trimmed off by, you know, having to take the wire and everything off is perfect for doing the wire wrapped links that we'd join, you know, from the focal point to the rest of either just mechanized chain like how we did here, or you could do a whole length of a bunch of links brought together, or gemstones strung, or any bead really strung on like beading cable. It's designer's choice. Whatever inspires you, do that. Okay, so until then I'll set that off to the side. So now for the frame, we're going back to using our 16 gauge wire, sorry. And for this one, each side of the diamond is a smidge over 2 inches. So that'd be 2, 4, 6, 8. I'm gonna give myself 10 inches because again, I love having more wire to work with than what I feel like I desperately need, like the bare minimum. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sorry, I've got a ruler kind of like carved into the edge of this old sewing desk. So that should be plenty. And again, any excess that we have coming off the ends, I'll just use for making links or something. So there's 2, 3, and we're gonna want 5 pieces at this length. 4, but the 5th piece will be setting off to the side because it will come in a little later. In fact, if you're messy like me, choose your shortest one to be your 5th. Because what we did here was we start here at this point, and then we do our weave out this way, and we do our bend, and we come down. And then whenever I'm choosing components, I just want something that's got a hole that I can thread 4 wires side by side through. And then the 5th piece, like once we bound off and terminated those 4 core wires, the 5th piece we start from down here, and then we build up and come over into that final loop. And so I'm just going to take all 4 of these, I'm going to grab them rough about in the middle, and I'm going to give them a solid right angle bend, possibly even a little narrower than a right angle bend, but I like to do them all at once because then they more or less fit well into each other. You can see we've got a little bit of complication with them laying correctly off to the side, but as we get our weaving going, that will kind of right itself. So we're going to take the one that is going to be the center, and on each of these I actually really like to come through and make sure to squeeze with my pliers on both sides, close to the tip. And I think that just squares it up a little nicer. Though if you have any tips or anything for how to get a nice squared off point like this, or like even more nice and squared off, I am so interested in hearing that. One of my favorite things about teaching you guys is to learn from y'all, because I feel like I learn more from y'all than I would ever had learned just on my own. So I'm going to pull off 10 feet of our 26 gauge wire. Actually, let's go ahead and do, just because I do not feel like splicing in more, let's do 15 feet. Ooh, just because I want to antagonize the cat primarily. Snip, and then we're going to find the center of our wire by holding on to one end and then just drawing that all out. The main thing to watch out for, like, we kind of get to choose our difficulty. Do we want to have to splice more wire in, or do we want to get tangled kinky wire? Today I would rather have tangled kinky wire. So here's the center. I'm going to come down, whoop, about 6 inches to one side, and then, or to the left, because I weave adding from the right, and so that will give me wire to off balance. Because if I started in the dead center and did this, then one of my wires will be about 6 inches shorter than the other one, and I'd like to keep them as even as I can. So I'm near the end of the tip of our wire. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Smoosh. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Smoosh. So I like to do around 25 to 30. Let's go ahead and do 30. Just because it's a nice round number. Coils of the 26 gauge around the 18 gauge wire, and then we will slide that down towards the tip, and then I just use one fingernail, I'm pushing, the other fingernail I'm guiding over that right angle tip until we get them pretty much even. And then we are going to stack on another wire just like that. And ooh, this is where we've got some of this extra wire over here on a little bit of 16 gauge wire. I'm going to, as my core, I've coiled 20 coils, and then I'm going to tuck in that tail, so around 23 maybe. It's not super important, but to me it is, so that's why I'm doing it. But you don't feel like you have to be meticulous about that. But I utilized these little sections at the end of my piece, and I don't know if I'm going to do that again this time, but I'm just going to slide that off and set it to the side. And just in case I decide to use them, I like for them to be the same size. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's go wish. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and smush. And then we're going to tuck in that tail. I like to do my tutorials full time, like the full length of the tutorial. I'm not editing anything out because I never know how I might mess up, or what fresh idea I might have, or something that might be helpful to you. So I appreciate you being here watching our videos with us. I do hope that it's helpful to you. Boop, giving that a snip. And now both of those are going to be my little weaving guides, which are so helpful, y'all. I will want to put one weaving guide on each of the ends of the wire that we already have those 30 coils on. Just like that. So there's one. You could also use beads, you know, and stuff too, but this is, anytime that I do this, I want to make sure that I'm using the same wire gauge as what I'm weaving with, and that will help me to maintain good spacing. And I have this wire is entirely off to my right side, and this wire is entirely off to my left side. That way, hopefully they don't get entangled with each other. And so we're going to go 1 and 2. We're going to grab another wire, stacking it in so that this wire's behind it, and it's just kind of in line with the rest of the piece. Then 1, 2. It's very important to me to keep my my spacer just right there. And then we're going to add in our 4th wire, and we're going to go 1 and 2, just like that. Giving myself a little bit of space. I'm going to come, I fold up all the way this way, put my thumb on it to maintain tension, and then come between wires 3 and 4 before pressing in, and then nice sharp bends if I can. 2, and then to do that same thing, and I like to give them a little bit of just splaying them out like fingers instead of being bunched or gnarled. They're whoop, like that, like this. And it makes it so much easier to be able to just at a glance get in between the correct wires. So there is 1 coming up and around, and then 2, and now we're going to use those nylon jaw pliers and give it a smushy squish. Oh, that's not so bad. I'm going to pull that out just a smidge, and then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you can see I've got a little bit of imperfection right there. I think it'll be fine. We'll survive. So, but that's, if it's helpful to you, you may want to have a spacer on each core wire. I found just having that much was more than enough for me to kind of more or less get by. And then to do the next one, we'll just go 1, bending up nice and sharp, and 2. And then, because used to I'd go like this, where I kind of just wrap kind of lazy or loose, not lazy, just loose. And I feel like I get a much better result whenever I don't do that, because it ends up being so much tighter to the core wires, which as we demonstrated with the coiling earlier, the tighter we are to the core wires, the less weird bulging we're going to get with our final final squish. Like whenever we coiled very loosely and compressed it together and it was very irregular, that's what I'm talking about. Uh-oh, that's not the right. Boop, boop, boop. All right, so now, right there. There's 1, and then bring it up, and then there's 2, and then bring it up, and then I think I like to do the 5 before doing a squish, and I think that may help us avoid that little bulge at the end. So there's 3, 4, and 5. But yeah, I mean, it is minuscule difference between, or something I can point with. I was just wrapping loose on these 2, and I folded it over to do a crisper bend and have it be snug before folding in. Let's squish it and see if it made a difference. Smush. Yeah, you can see we've got a little bit of protrusion there along an otherwise perfect edge. So again, Not a big deal, not the end of the world if somebody's getting that close up into my jewelry to notice those differences in variation. For one, it's proof that it's handmade, and for two, then they're appreciating my jewelry. So I'm not gonna chase somebody off if they're looking at it with a magnifying glass just because, hot dog, somebody's, you know, interested enough in my jewelry to be looking at it through a magnifying glass. So there's 1, 2, 1, 2, then bring it up and around, then up and around. Oh, I'm out of frame. There we go. So yeah, but by coming up, pressing my thumb to maintain that tension, and then bringing it between the wires, it just keeps it very snug and flat, I think. So bring it up, lay your finger on, come in between the wires, and then pull nice and snug. Come up, come between the wires, boop, come up, come between the wires, boop. Sliding that spacer out the way. See, I should have had the spacer a little closer up in because now it's really difficult to fit that in there. But whenever I run into that, I like to use one of my pairs of pliers, doesn't really matter. And I just have it to where it's sliding freely over the core wires, but it's tight enough that it'll catch the edge of our weaving wire. So there's 1, 2, and that just saves my fingernail. 3, 4, and 5. And now let's give that a squish. Boop. I'm still getting a little bulge right there. I don't know what I'm doing, why it's doing that. But hey, I'm nothing if not consistent. And something that we can do after this is all woven is we can actually just come through and kind of squish with our nylon jaw pliers very gently so as to not jackknife anything. But we can kind of try to mild out some of that irregular edge. But yeah, that's on 5 times zoom. On like regular time, it looks pretty good. I think we'll be okay. So I know I had just said, that, sorry, I've got a drum off to my right and the wire was just dancing on it. I know I said that we do our tutorials in full time, but there is a whole lot of this weaving to do and the tutorial is already quite long. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get up to where we have 5 repetitions of this pattern on each of the sides, and I will meet you guys back here to do the corner bends, and then we'll go off camera to do the other 5 on each side. And so we're gonna kind of stagger that out. But wish me luck. I'll see y'all in a moment. Alrighty, y'all. So, oh, I was supposed to do the whoa. Alrighty, y'all, so we are here. I've woven the other 5 on the other side, and we're gonna go ahead and give that our squishy smush. And that came out pretty well. Actually, I'm very pleased with it. I'm digging it. So now the concept here is that we want the ends of our herringbone to be made into a loop that's going to span the distance and wrap around one of our core wires. So I'm going to go ahead, and you could use your round nose pliers here for this. I'm just going to bend around this way, making sure that there's enough space that I can get that bend around a 16 gauge wire, just like that there. And we can make sure that our little coils are still nice and happy. And so on the other side, that's going to look just like this. So I'm not doing it completely close to the tip of my pliers. In fact, let me grab a different pair. So if you've watched some of my other tutorials, you may have seen me compare my fine tipped that we ground down to get really nice and fine, and just some dummy thick, like pretty inexpensive, needs oiled because they're rusted, flat nose pliers. This right here is going to be a perfect use for some dummy thick pliers like this, because now I can just grab right here and bend this around, and that way both wires are on the same thickness. We'll go ahead and push that end in. I should have done it the same on both sides, but that's how I would go through and do that. And you can make sure that you have a nice broad tip, and that way if you're doing a bunch of these, you can get very consistent with that bend. Now from here, I want to snip with about 4 or 5 millimeters. We can always trim more off, so I'm going to go more this way, and then boop. There we go. And then on this side, I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to go boop, just like that. And now here, I'm going to use my fine tip pliers. That way I can get really tight and in between. And I'm going to squish nice and snug, whoop, and do... Now when my pliers slip off like that, there's a risk of pinching the enameling or leaving like a little plier bite. To avoid that, I just want to make sure that I get a little bit more of the wire into the jaws of my pliers. That way I'm not so prone to just slipping off. But I want to bend those wires up to kind of parallel. And from here, we're going to get our tangle of wire off to one side. And I think we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And we'll end up, I don't want to bend in too much because I want that like straight line there, but we can either use our pliers or our fingernail, pliers are preferred, I'm going to say, to do a nice little bend back up. So we bent to get that shape. And then I'm going to have my wire exiting off that away just to hopefully get it out of the way. So we had our 5 is what I finished on. So now we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then we'll go ahead and bend inward. And wherever the wires start crossing, I just want to make sure that we're honoring that center line of our piece. We'll tweak it more when we get there, but it's just something to keep in mind. And so now from here, we can come to like the center part here is what I'm lining up with the edge of my pliers, and I want to just do a bend, boop, that way. And then I'm going to come out and we'll bend that way, and then we'll come out, and each time wherever the center of our wire is going to be, like the center of the tip, I have my pliers off just a little to the side of it to get hopefully a nice stack. Okay, so we're going to flip it. I want to place these pliers right here. So like, if those are, you could even mark with like a Sharpie or something. Do you see how I have it at that angle? That's more or less where the bends are going to be, and I want my pliers to be on the outside. If this is the inside, I want my pliers to be on the outside of that bend. So I'm just going to come in right here, and we are going to bend up, boop, and then we're going to come out just a bit, and then we'll bend up. And my tendency is go on and come out more than what you think you need. Usually gets me where I'm going. And now from here, we can, oh no, it'll fit around 18 gauge or 16 gauge, but not 16 gauge that's been coiled with the 26 gauge over it. So ruh-roh raggy. That's okay. We'll go ahead and open it up some. Get our dummy thick pliers up in there. Ooh, I gotta oil these. And then bend, just to get that bend going. Final check on the lab, on which side we want facing up. And then also this is where we get to choose which side is going to be the front. If you've got one side of your piece that's just looking crispier than the other, then have that one be your front. So that's poked through. We're gonna come forward just a bit. You know, I'm gonna open that one up just a little bit more just to make it easier to get around and through. And I'm thinking I should have given myself more wire off the end here, you guys, but we'll figure it out. And so now pressing quite firmly to get that wire, this wire right here, as deep into that bend as what we can get before I start encouraging that shut with our nylon jaw pliers. Just use whatever pliers you can until you're finding a good fit for them. Yeah, I should have put I should have waited to do the snip until after. Again, it is not the end of the world. Here we go. Getting that to come around. Very good. So pressing up that away. And it squished some of our half round. That's okay. We can deal with that here in a moment. Squished. I know how to speak English, I promise. I just talk like I live under a rock. 'Cause I do. But it's by choice. Boom. Okay. So if your half round starts moving on you, you can use one of the sides of your pliers to kind of carefully, because this hurts really bad when it slips and stabs me under the fingernail. It's been a minute since that's happened, but it's a pain that I recall. So we can either snip it and try to remove it, or we can get in there and just shape it around. And I think that'll be just fine. But yeah, definitely do not do what I did and wait to do that snip until the end. Because then we're supposed to have enough wire that we can just come in and do a nice little, like, just pinch right there. Yes, just like how it did. Okay, so it still worked out. It still worked out in the end, but I would have liked to have had, I don't know, 1 millimeter or 2 of wiggle room to not be stressing myself. Oops. And I don't want to be chewing my wire up here, so we're going to have to choose our path. Do we want there to be a little gap, or do I want to risk chewing up my wire? I'm going to go the gap route, because it's a lot easier to just be like, oh, that's how it looks, than to have it look like I chewed on it. All right. So there is that. And now we will continue our weaving pattern. Let me scooch my situation out of the way. We're going to line these up to make sure that they are nice and parallel. And then I do like to make one side be a little more offset to the back and one side be a little more offset to the front, just so that it's easier for me to get around them. And so we're going to go 1 and 2, and then 1 and 2. And then 1 and 2 around all 4 wires. And this is re-establishing our spacing. Gonna want to make sure that we've got a little bit of a strategic splay going on so that we can still do what we want to do. And you could replace this weaving pattern with whatever pattern you would prefer to add a little bit of variation. Oh, now here we go. Sometimes something goes awry and you've just got to back up a little bit. And there we go. So it looks like I had just crossed over my own work, but sometimes if you don't notice those things, it gets set in stone almost whenever. So keep an eye on your weaving as you go. It doesn't have to be perfect, but sometimes, you know, something will happen, and like how it did there, and you'll have time to recover before it becomes really tricky to repair or correct. There's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Now, depending on the size of the component that you're going to be adding, you may want to do, like if I had a very large component, or let's say if I wanted to attach 2 of these together, which I think would be super wicked cool actually. So let's pretend like these side loops aren't there. And if I wanted this to come down and attach like here, to where it's just folding around and holding, which wouldn't that be neat for like a wall hanging or something? Using like a different gemstone in each one, or for a very long like chest piece. So you don't have to do 5, but for this design I'm going to do 5 because it works out. But if you had a larger piece that was attaching farther up, you could just do 3. Just do however many weaves it takes to get you to where you're going. And so now, through the magic of editing, I will meet you guys back here when I've woven 5 on each side. Wow. Okay, so we are here now. We have done the 5 coils on each side, and I had a little bit more of like spreading happening over there than what I had thought, but that's okay. We can just come in, give it the old squishy smush, and then we're going to trim off our excess wire. So pulling off 15 feet of wire gave me about 1.5 feet of scrap that I do not consider scrap because we will be using it later on in the piece. Or it'd be perfect for making, you know, little short coiled segments or, you know, what have you. So here you can see this is going to be lining up with, I'm going to be putting the wires through this side and this side of our little Seed of Life component, this little flower mandala charm. And so with that in mind, on this one, I want to show you, I had pushed these coiled sections down and kind of spliced them in, but it really, I don't think it served anything because that's how it's looking on the back. So this time, instead of doing that, I'm just going to slide those off. We can either hide them in a fairy jar or save them for next time. And I'm going to give myself way more than what I think I'll need. So a whole finger width, so about, I mean, almost 20 millimeters. Boom. Man, these wire snips, y'all. It just chomped through 4 lengths of 16 gauge. These things just take some pretty serious abuse. And all of these that are like longer than, I don't know, I like to put them like this. These ones are certainly too short for me to make any bead links out of, but these ones over here, I may be able to do something. So I'm going to try to zoom in just a smidge. And from here, we're going to do that thing again, where we are going to grab quite flush up. So I'm going to squish everything down nice and compact. And we are going to give this just a 90-degree bend. Like so. Making sure that it's towards the back of the piece. And then over here on this side, we're going to squish everything nice. And I kind of want to do it from the same angle. So I'm having my pliers be parallel to the center of our weaving. And we are going to go like, ooh, we want to do that. Here we go. And bonk. That way that angle of bend is more or less symmetrical. And we can kind of, you know, squish one side in a little more and keep it centered. And now we can thread these 4 wires through here and here. And hopefully that angle will align nicely with our little seed of life component that we can now set down on our work surface, and we can just bend those wires back, either using our hands or pliers. But I like doing that first bend first because I feel like it gives it a training bend that now, as we fold it over, everything kind of lines up just fine. And from here, we're going to come in about that far. Let's give them a snip. And on this side, coming out about that far from where it crosses over. There we go. Lots of fodder for the fairy bottles today. And then I'm just going to come through and gripping like this. I'm going to go like, and it just brings all those little cut ends down nicely. Trying to make sure I'm not goobing up the front of my piece. So we can train that down just a little first and then give it the old squishy smush. Again, making sure that I'm not marring up our weaving on the front. Test it for any pokey bits. Nylon jar, great for this because I don't have to worry about them marring the wire nearly so badly. And so now we've made it this far into our piece. And the next step is I'm going to take that 5th strand of the 16 gauge wire that we had cut previously. I'm going to zoom out just a smidge. I'm going to hold one end of this wire quite firm. And we are going to work harden the heck out of this. Like, it's nice and hot to my fingers. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come more or less in the center. And I want to just bend a really nice, sharp point. Bending on, like, checking it with the pliers on each side. And now I'm going to take 2 of these scrap 26 gauge wires that we had snipped from our original weaving. One's just a little longer than the other, but they're almost 2 feet long. I hope that that should be enough. We shall see. But I'm just going to start coiling on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I am being meticulous on this time. So we're at 8 right now. Getting that tail tucked in. So that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Squishy smush. And we'll be bringing that all the way down to the tip. I'm being deliberate about where our raw snipped end is because I don't want it to be visible from the front. But this is going to line up with like right here on our piece. So I'm going to open it just a smidge. Oh, and 15's a little too much actually. So, I don't know, on the original piece, I had lined it up with like right there and right there. You can see where that wire's coming across through our charm. But you can see it kind of offset it from being completely in line. So perhaps on this side, on this piece, we could have it intersect a little differently. And I may do the cross point right here. So that was 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. When I've trimmed the tail off, I need to be really careful to make sure I have a good grip so it's not just, you know, spiraling the coil underneath my fingers. And then I'm going to space test it. Yeah, 20 looks like it'll be great. And, oh, lunch is ready. I'll be back. Okay, we're having ramen and soft-boiled eggs for lunch. So the eggs are done and the ramen's cooking, so I'm going to see if we can get a little bit more done on this pendant in between. Work-life balance. So I'm going to do the same, what did we do, 20? On the other side, just to get it nice and already woven. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And then I'm going to trim this little end off to give to the fairy bottle. Boop. And boop. Now, on the original, I had done this all as one, like, section. But I think it's going to look really nice to have that little bit of gap there. Unless you hate it, and in which case, you do you. Now, and I'm making sure to leave the hole in our charm clear, because that's where we're going to be using a chainmail jump ring. This is a 18 gauge, 3/16 inch square stainless steel. So it's a round ring, but it's made out of square wire. And that's what I'm going to be using to attach our drop. I just like the way it looks. So, personally. Okay, so now, let me zoom back in. I'm going to, it's kind of like we're sewing, and the wire is both the needle and the thread. And we're just going to come through, boop, the center of that little petal. And on whatever charms you use, I just make sure that there's space to be accommodating for a bit of wire to come through. And other than that, it's good to go. And just the one wire I think will be sufficient. So there's 1, 2, oopsie, 3, 4, and 5, just to maintain that tension so that I can tug on it and it's not going to just pull that stitch out. And now, sewing through on the other side, coming through the petal. The wire's going to want to kink. Whenever that happens, I don't force it through. I pull the wire back out a little bit and then let it come through cleanly. And then coming up through there. So yeah, nice, and I like that. It's nice and centered. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now I'm going to continue coiling until we have gotten to where I am more or less positioned right here. That way I can do a wrap around both. So I'm going to coil until I get to there on both sides, then I'll meet you guys back here. Okay, so I've woven or coiled up to where we're ready to sew through. Now originally I had used 26 gauge here and 28 gauge for this part because it makes it really easy to sew in between the pre-woven wires. But I thought I'd take a risk and it seems to be working out just fine to do 28 or 26 on 26, like just to use the same gauge. And so there we have those 2 wraps around both, and then we can come in and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I think 15 is gonna do us, but we'll see. 11, 12, let's just do 12. And that way we're centered up to now do, there's 1, and there's 2 stitches around both. And then we'll just continue on down. I'm running low on my wire here. So what I would do is 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I can get at least 1 more repetition of this pattern out of the remaining wire. But if you'll pretend with me for a moment that we're not stuck. There we go. Just getting my thumbnail so that it can slide past those tips is really nice. We'll do 6, 7, 8. So what I would do is I would cut here and then do 4 more wraps, and then so that's how I would splice it in. I wouldn't worry about them actually being spliced in this sense that the wires are in between. It'd be just a butted join. So it would look very much like if I were to just go, you know, coil and add that on. But again, I think we can do, so it was 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Keeping that nice and compressed. I don't know if we need to do the 12 exactly like that, but again, it seems to be working. And that's how I add on that additional frame element. Again, kind of trying to, it may be easier to just hand sew past that tip instead of trying to slide past it. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But yeah, I think I'm gonna want to go ahead and snip here. Yeah, I'll bring it around to the front. And then we've got that nice, just little bit of scrap that I usually end up coiling and sticking the coil into one of the fairy jars. So, but yeah, here you may be able to see the little coils and things. I just think it makes it look so interesting. It was something that would otherwise, you know, end up either trash, or for years I saved all of my scrap enameled wire, but we get not very much back from the scrap metal place here locally, so hence the upcycling in different ways. But yeah, so then we'll just sew through. There's 1 and 2. Just being real careful to not like overlap back over previous stitches. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm just gonna do 11 on this side, just cause 12 seems a little too much. And then, ooh, here we've got, it's kind of hard to fit the wire in. So sometimes I'll go much closer to where the wire's already traveling through, and that'll let me sneak in. And then I'll use my pliers. There's no reason to torture our hands if we don't have to. And then right through there. And I'm going to continue in this manner until I get done with this side, and then we're probably gonna eat, and I'll meet you back here for, I mean, for you, no time will have passed, but I am ravenous. This is taking way longer than what I remembered. Like yesterday, like I just put on like, I think a nature show and just like went. Whereas today I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna be like a 2-hour long tutorial. Uh-oh. So I'm gonna get, up to where I am on the other point, and then I'll meet you guys back here. Alrighty, y'all, I am back. We've had some lunch, and we are 6 coils in. So I'm gonna go, that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 before snipping off this little tail end of wire. Well, actually, I'm gonna wait to snip that so that we've got something to hold on to keep this from just pulling all of our stitches out. Because I'll show you. Did you see how quick and easy that just whoop? If I were to tug on this, it may start to slip. Like I could just whoop, pull that all out. And so I'm leaving the tail on there because that gives me something to lay my finger on to hold down so that we can apply pressure. There we go. And now I don't really have to worry about it. So there's 1 and 2. Oh, lunch was so good. We're trying out some, normally we eat like Maruchan ramen, like the cheap stuff, for the cheapest we can find. But we found some that were like a little more expensive, but oh, it's much tastier. Still basically just a salt lick, but it's tasty. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So now it's looking like we could probably, I'm gonna go ahead and smush that because I love it. I love smushing. There we go. So I went ahead and went all the way to 15 on this one, and then I'm gonna sew through, because you can see here I left it like bare on the corners, but I bet we could do something fancy. Let's try something. So there's 1, and then 2, and then I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I have to remind myself that whatever I do on one side, I'm probably going to have to do on the other to make it symmetrical. So I hope that that is doable or viable. And then we're going to go 1 and 2, making sure I don't cross over my own work. Oh, I went through the wrong one. That's okay. We'll just back it up, thread through the correct gap. But that actually is taking me into my next thing that I'd like to do. So we've got 1, 2. We're going to slide on one of our guide pieces. And we're going to come through right here. So we're going to do 2 stitches around 3. Core wires, and then we're going to come back down to just going around 2. So there is 1 and there is 2. Love it. And now we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to use my flat nose pliers just to kind of compress that a little, give it the old squishy smush. And then we're going to do 10. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm going to grab right here, making sure that we're just pushing that wire around. So it's not like bent out of direction or anything, but we're just going to bend this up like that. And then I'm going to go, I may end up needing to splice in another additional wire, but I used up all the weird scrap end pieces that were like a little under 2 feet long. And that's really that's my favorite. I'll splice in wire all day. I just don't want to have any scrap, because waste not, want not. So there's 1 and 2, around 2. Let's see. And then 1. And I'm going to place my thumbnail there over those 2 that I had already made, because then I can slide it down, and it kind of behaves like a slide that I don't have to worry about going over what I don't like, backtracking over my own work. There's 1 and 2. Now we're just going to thread through right there. It's short enough. I start to get a little blister right here. I can feel it under the skin. And you could, my favorite to use is like Nextcare tape, but I'd rather just not have a blister. So I'm using my pliers whenever the wire gets short like this, to give my hands a little bit of a break. There's 1 and 2. Now we can slide that spacer off. We can go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's go ahead and give it the old squish or smush. I just like saying that. I'm sorry, y'all. Like, I realize I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm brewed for me and I'm enjoying this. So thank you all for stopping by and being here. All right, so now we're gonna go 1 and 2, just like that. And then 1, 2, 3. Now we can have, let's finish it on 5 before I get distracted, just because that way I know how many to do on the other side if this is where we end up stopping. Oh, so that looks so cool. Now you could do it just bare or like that. Sky's the limit on ways that you can add your own little fingerprints and details, and whatever inspires you, do that. So we can put this loop anywhere we want along. I recommend having it up just a little from being on the edge. Now I don't think that this one's large, like it's large enough and it's spaced out enough that we shouldn't have to worry about it falling forward, but I do kind of like the halfway point here. I think that looks pretty cool, and it lets me wear it shorter, almost like not quite on the neck choker, but just pretty high up on my collarbones. And the point here sits almost directly in the hollow between my clavicles, so I really like that. So you can kind of hold it up and see just on your own neck, and you get to decide from there how you want that done. Now that's a little too short for me to comfortably wrap with, so I'm gonna go ahead and just snip that there, smush that down. I'm just using the flat side of my box hinge to just press our wire weaving in. I'm going to go ahead and do just another 5 feet, just because I don't think it's going to take that much, but that'll give us a nice little bit to work with on the other end. So now let's go ahead and splice in. We had done, I think, 6. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. and we're going to trim off that little bit of tail wire for the fairy bottles. And then just smushing that down, getting it nice and burnished down so there's no little pokey bits. And we're going to slide that all the way down. And I try to bring it around to where the cut ends are lined up with each other, that way there's no gap. But that's kind of tricky to do. There we go. So now, we got to find all the way the end of our wire. So sometimes it's worth splicing in more often and just not having to work with such a cumbersomely long wire, but I don't mind it. I mean, y'all probably will because I'm going to be wandering out of frame. I'm sorry for that. So there's one stitch. Pulling all the way down. And then, how do we get through to there? There we go. Pulling the wire as though it is the needle and the thread. All the way through and around. And then we will go one. Oops. That's really stuck on the tip there. So we'll just, there we go. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And then I'm sewing from the back side here, so that's just something to keep in mind, that I want 2 coils on the front. So there's one, or not coils, 2 of the wraps where it's around 2 core wires. And then here's 2. Again, checking on the front, looks great. I'm gonna go ahead and just try to work with the front facing me if I can, so I don't forget. 3, 4, 5. Let's try to compress that down if we can so I can fit the next segment, which is building it up to a slightly larger little pyramid shape. Woo, my scrap! So there's one. Oh my goodness, I'm regretting cutting that full 5 feet. Again, mostly just for the sake of staying in frame, but the struggle be real. And now we're gonna go through wrapping twice around 3 wires. So there's one, and then when I notice that wire starting to twist up on me, you gotta almost anticipate the kinks that are going to develop in your wire. But practice makes progress with all things, so the more you do this, the better you'll get at being like, you know, I bet that's going to turn into a kink. I should go ahead and straighten it out now. There's one, and then 2 around both, and then we're gonna do, I don't know if I remember how many, but we might do 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Let's go wish. It might have been 20. We'll see. I can always add on more. I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna count it. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, It's probably closer to 15. Did we do 10 or 15 there? Oh my goodness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, that was 15. Cool, perfect. We are good to go. Yay! We're in the final stretch, you guys. A lot of the times with projects, it can be a feat of endurance to get through it, more so than skill or creativity. You know, it's just sometimes a project just takes a couple of hours, and sometimes your hands are going to be a little sore. That is okay. Be patient with yourself, be patient with the progress, or with the project, and be patient with your progress too. And feel free to take breaks. You know, sometimes set the project down, have a stretch, have a drink or something, you hydrate so you don't dehydrate, and come back to it with fresh eyes. If you find yourself being critical of your pieces, I would encourage you to be constructively critical. And what I mean by that is, you know, if it's like, instead of saying, oh, my piece sucks, be like, okay, well, why do you think it sucks? Because I can almost guarantee you're probably being unnecessarily hard on yourself. I catch myself being unnecessarily hard on myself, but that's also, you know, well, I'll justify my own poor behavior, but sometimes I do feel like it helps me to be critical of my work. You know, I don't need to be breaking myself down, you know, and berating myself over, you know, being human or something. But if I can look at my piece and be like, okay, well, these things came out really nice, but it really looks like I chewed on it like a feral animal with my pliers over here. Oh, y'all, that worked perfect. Coming through and using the fine edge of my flat nose, whoops, to just open up between those two wires. Super duper helped me to get, whoop, my 26 gauge wire through. But just be constructively critical. You know, is it not symmetrical? Like, what don't you like about it? Because the obstacle is the way. If my weaving is very uneven and that's the part that I don't like, then now I know what to practice. I need to practice even weaving. And that's easier said than done, but it gives me something that's actionable instead of just being like, welp, I suck at this. Though sometimes there are projects that I'm just like, this is horrible, and I like need to like burn it and bury the bones. Like burn it, bury it in the backyard and salt the bones, I think is what I used to say in some of our older tutorials. But that's true. It's true though. Sometimes it's like, well, I learned a lot, I'm gonna start over. This one's quite bad. It's okay to make some bad pieces of jewelry. Like, that's all right. Just don't beat yourself up about them. There's no benefit in that. There's no such thing as wasted time and materials whenever you're learning. And sometimes it's really hard to feel that way, and so, you know, or to not feel like I've just wasted a bunch of time and materials if I do something and it comes out just rubbish. So what I do is I try to just find some lesson out of it, something recoverable. You know, like just being humbled by sometimes ideas just don't pan out the way you wanted them to the first time, or the 5th time, or the 12th time. That's okay. There we go. So we're coming through. Foomp. Okay, let's give that one a smush just to see how it went. Oh, I love it. All right, so we're about to be up to where we were on the other side. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. It really gets caught on those tips sometimes. There we go. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I'm just looking at it because It's less important to me that these are exactly the same number of stitches each time, and it's more important to me that it ends up being nice and centered. So that one, it took 14 coils. That's okay. So now we're going to come through right here. There is one. Coming around. And there is 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I think I'm going to do my last one here and then finish it off on 5 coils. Back to doing 11. And that's all right. So there's 1 stitch through. Bringing that all around. So there's 1. Oh, I'm so excited, you guys, for this to come to the conclusion of this tutorial. Like, it's very exciting to get to make jewelry even after all these years. Okay, I'm gonna finish it on 10, I think. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Giving that a snip. And now we do get to come through and do that same thing on this side to get it to finished. And I wouldn't have had to do the splicing if I had just pulled off an original like 5 feet of wire to just do the sides, but I love getting to use up that excess that might otherwise just end up in my scrap pile. Some mush. Okay. And sneak. Tucking in our little loose end. Sliding it down. And this is what I mean by bringing those 2 cut ends to where they're lined up with each other. Like, do you see how that's pretty close? There we go. I mean, it doesn't have to be like perfect, but that's what I meant whenever I mentioned that earlier. Okay, so now we're gonna do those same stitches. And if you're following along with our tutorials and you're ever having any problems and you would like some feedback, do feel free to send me, well, that's way too close. Do feel free to send me an email to backtoearthcreations@yahoo.com with pictures of your work with like the problem area circled or something. That's very helpful in us being helpful to you. You can also just leave a comment here on the video if you have any questions or ideas or anything, because oftentimes, even if I don't know the answer, we've got, and not to brag, but like we have like the best community on YouTube. I love you guys. Y'all are so creative and kind and encouraging, and like we're the wind in each other's sails, it feels like sometimes. So I really appreciate you guys. And if I don't know the answer, I'll bet you one of y'all do. Or even if I reply with my idea or how I would do it, that's not the only way of doing things. So the kind of feedback that we could get from each other just down in the comments section is tremendous and an amazing resource. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And so we've got over the third. Okay, so this is my last stitch, I guess, and then I'll remeasure that once I get past here because that seems too good to be true. But yeah, let me know in the comments if I can be helpful to you, or if you have any requests for future tutorials. If you haven't, be sure to sign up for our free newsletter at backtoearthcreations.com, because every time we have a new tutorial or a shop update or a live stream here on this channel, I send out a newsletter to let you guys know. Just because YouTube notifications can be really hit and miss, even if I have all of the bells and whistles turned on, it's still pretty hit or miss. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So let's see. Yep. We're ready. We're gonna snip that. Set it off to the side. Okay, so now from here, I'm going to snip right in line with just right there, just using the piece to measure itself, really. There we go. And now we can take, I'm just gonna bend up just a little, and I have a mark on my round nose pliers, and that's where I'm gonna start. And we're just gonna bring that in like that, making a loop. And going around like that, making a loop. And there we are, you guys. Oh, wait, we gotta add the teardrop. And I'm really glad I made the teardrop in the beginning because like my hands are tired, I'm tired, I'm ready to like go for a walk or something and not be wire wrapping for a minute. And so now all I have to do is join this one jump ring. Trying to make sure we have as nice of a butted closure as we can get. I always check with my finger because my eyes don't see so good as what they used to. Oh my goodness. What a nice sister piece to this one here. And you can see I just made some little, with the same 6mm beads and some little bead caps that I'm now out of. Just to make a link to attach it to some chain. And then the way I finish the ends of the chain is I just use a lobster claw clasp. There will be links exactly to the chain that I use down in the video description. This is the thinner of the two, and then this is like the 19 gauge. So again, they'll be down there in the video description. But I like them. They're enameled iron, and they seem to hold up really well. But you could use any chain of your choice, and like I had said earlier, like you could even make like more of this wire woven and just have them like coming off to the side. There are so many different ways that you could finish off this project. So thank you guys again so much for coming and hanging out. I hope that this was helpful to you, and I will see you in our next video tutorial or short or different thing. We're always doing something new here on the channel, so I'll see y'all there though, and until next time, happy crafting. Mwah. Bye.